I'll pass
Um,
it to you.
Thank you. So first, welcome everyone who has made time to join us for this awesome community event where we are going to learn about the life cycle of a bill. And just to give a little bit of background on the who, what, when, where, why, last year, let me back up. I am Makya Little. A candidate for Virginia's House of Delegates to represent the newly drawn 19th District, which represents portions of Fairfax and Prince William County to include Fort Belvoir, Lorton, Mason Neck, and northeastern Woodbridge, everything east of 95. And one of the things that I advocated for before launching this run was HB 1351. That bill, also known as Makya's Law, would have removed the 1-year waiting period that survivors of domestic violence have to wait in the Commonwealth of Virginia to be granted a full divorce. And although I had no experience writing legislation, I knew based on other advocacy work that I had done that I could literally advocate for the laws to change in Virginia faster than I could get a divorce. So I started with all I knew, which was step one, which was to find a patron. But where I went after that, I had no idea. I didn't even know how soon I needed to find a patron. And so one of the things, even though the bill was unsuccessful in the 2022 legislative cycle, I felt that if more of our citizens knew the possibilities, even if your bill isn't successful the first time around, that we are all empowered and have the ability to not just advocate for legislation, but to write it and usher it through or shepherd it through the process ourselves. In addition to voting and other forms of civic engagement, I think it would be a great way for more voices to be heard. When I found out that Delegate Glass was offering this summer-ish program where she was doing just that, teaching everyday citizens of the Commonwealth how undaunting the process actually is, and just shedding light on the process and systems that we have that may intimidate some, but making them unintimidatable and more accessible. I begged her if I could just be a fly on the wall in one of her sessions, and she just said, "Sis, say less. I will just do a whole nother session for you." So first, I want to thank Delegate Glass for partnering with me to ensure that this course that she has put together is accessible to those of us in Northern Virginia and the Shenandoah and beyond, because we as citizens of the Commonwealth have a right to have our voices heard, and not necessarily having to go through gatekeepers who can translate a bill into their own, but to write the words ourselves. So I just want to introduce Delegate Glass to you all. She is a self-proclaimed certified doer from the Chicagoland area who served as a cryptologist in the United States Navy for 11 years. She is currently a social entrepreneur and hosts a podcast, Your Neighbor's Hood, and consults with businesses, organizations, and governments to recognize and improve markets and policies influenced by racism, sexism, ableism, and classism. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Workforce Education Training and Development from Southern Illinois University. Delegate Glass is a sneakerhead, just like me, by marriage, and loves to share her kicks via hashtag AIMS, Activision in My Soul. She, her husband, and her 2 little citizens call Norfolk their chosen hometown. And with that, I will mute myself and give you the delegate, Jackie Glass.
You're funny. So good evening, guys. I'm so grateful, like, of the cool things that I think I get the opportunity to be a part of since being elected is like, we built this office in the what is this? This is the 10th month. We're in the 10th month. Yeah. So it's been 10 months on the job of just like building from a place of foundationally, our pillars are to educate, advocate, celebrate, and now legislate. And so what I know as just as a person is that you can't do that last piece. You can't really legislate well without doing the first three really well. And it does all start with educating people to become better advocates so that we can celebrate our wins. So this course was put together as Makya said, for Hampton Roads. And I did have to tell her, no, you can't come to the summer school because it's only for people in Hampton Roads, because I do believe in taking care of our people first, right? Like I got to take care of my own backyard before we go other places, telling folks what to do, how to do, what to do, all that good stuff. So grateful to be able to do this. Thank you, Makya, for like really trying to be an advocate of like the most dangerous thing that we can do is educate our electorate, because that makes them from a different level of accountability. So this class that we're doing today is the first class that we did in a 4-part series called Summer School for Certified Doers. And so since we're not in the summer anymore, we're calling it summer sorta. If you look out your window, it's definitely not summer anymore. Summer sort of school for certified doers. And so the other two pieces we went through, what outside of the Lifecycle bill, we build the bill. We helped them start actually building their bill. We taught how to lobby, like how to go through the whole process of lobbying for your bill, and then how to actually present it to someone, how to present it to a legislator, how to be a witness. I mean, how to testify at the state level and at the local level for that specific bill. And most people found out they didn't want to do a bill. That was a program that they needed, or a little piece of policy that they needed to go, or now they need to connect with other people. This process will, this course will demystify just the how we start, how we get from an idea to a bill. Huge group tonight, but I always think the right people show up every single time. Feel free to pause me and say, got a question or whatever as we go through. And I want to say hey to Lamont, because Lamont was just on the phone with me on Monday about a bill. It's good to see you. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Just give me 1 second. We're going to present. All right, so I'm paying attention to make sure. So this is, again, summer school for certified doers, and we're here to get smart. I'm gonna move my little notes over here. But before we get started, I want to take a minute to get to know who's in the room, right? Like really wholeheartedly. I'm going to ask you all to take a second to think about what your favorite food is, what your name is if you don't remember, unless you showed up as somebody different tonight, and then what city you're in. All right, you're going to take a second to process this, and you got to have an answer, okay, for all of them. What your name is, what your oops favorite food. I went backwards. Go ahead. Is it? There it is. And what city you're in. Now, since I got Makya, we're gonna lead by example. I would love for you to go first, and then I want you to toss it to the next person if you can.
Sounds like a game plan. So favorite food, that's really, really hard because I love French cuisine, but I like the uniqueness of it. So it's not like a dish. But if I do eat out because I'm frugal, I like dishes where I can make like 2 meals out of it. So I'm going to say pasta. Pasta
Okay.
Food. My name is Makya Little, and I hail from Woodbridge, Virginia. And I am going to toss it to, let's see, since Lamont was eager to learn that he jumped on the call, I'll toss it to Lamont.
Okay, well, my name is Lamont Waltz, Lamont Umar Waltz. My favorite food would be shrimp po' boys, and I'm from Norfolk, Virginia right now.
Toss it to the next person, Lamont.
Oh, I got to find the participants to do that. Okay, here we go. Eric Riley.
Howdy, I'm Eric Riley. like others have said, it's tough to come up with a favorite food, but I have to go with a nice catfish sandwich. I currently live in Woodbridge right now. And let's kick it over to Christina.
Hey, I don't know if you can hear me or not. I live in the mountainous area of the northern end of Prince William County, so technically closer to Aldi. My favorite savory is fried chicken, and my favorite sweet is a lemon meringue pie.
Woo-wee. So I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but I changed your names. And go ahead and get to the next. You got one more person to get to.
You're stuck with me, I guess.
Yeah, that's great.
Favorite food is a meal I ate every day for a couple of years when I worked in the fish market in Vietnam. So it's pineapple, tomatoes, hot chilies, squid, and rice. I don't know what you call that. I mean, I know what you call it in Vietnamese. It doesn't really have an English translation. And my name's Lindley, and I don't live in a city. I live in a farm, on a farm in Rockingham County.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm Lindley. I'm saying it right. Okay, so I'm Jackie. We sort of met already. I base my favorite meal off what time of day it is. And since it's the evening and I would typically be eating dinner, I'm going to say my favorite food is tacos, because there's so many different things you can put in tacos. Like I can have fish tacos, I can have steak tacos, I have all kinds of tacos. So we are now officially new people, right? We've got pasta Makya, we got squid Lindley, we got catfish sandwich Eric, we got shrimp po' boy Lamont, we got fried chicken Christina. We're new people now. That's what we're going by for this class. We just learned a little bit about each other. Okay. Who's it? I thought somebody came off mute.
Yes, I love it.
Oh, it is. It's acted up. All right. So the most important thing that we start with is our objectives and our agenda. The goal of today, what we're going to do is we're going to, by the end of this course, you should be able to understand and know who the people are in this process, the actual bill process, and then maybe hopefully you guys take away some next steps. So the goal is we're going to understand how a bill becomes a law in Virginia. By the end of this course, that's what you should be able to identify. Now, let me just make it clear. Hundreds of bills enter into the legislative process each time the Virginia General Assembly meets. And so as a sort of representative democracy, I'd like to say we're in a constitutional democratic republic, more so than a democracy, right? Two groups of people, the elected citizens. We've got 40 senators, if you didn't know. We've got 100 delegates that study, discuss, vote on bills by doing so as an act of the people of Virginia. And so what we're going to go through here are the typical steps of that process in which those 140 people go through to help a bill become a law in the Commonwealth. And so, like I said, often one of the most questions I get very often, especially from our littlest citizens and even from, adults, is like, so you work for the governor? No, I don't work for the governor. We don't work for the governor. And I know some of you guys may be familiar with this process. It may be your thing to know this process. No, we don't work for the governor. We are equal branches of the government. He or she is the executive and we are the legislative. Between us and the Senate, between the House of Delegates and the Senate, we all make up this process one way or another. And I will get into what the governor's role is in this, but we're going to sort of stick to initially what the legislative side is, what that process is legislatively. And as I said before, please do not hesitate to ask questions as we go along. All right, so in the beginning, there was light inside of your head, right? Or someone's head. This all starts with an idea, whether it's a new idea for a new law, or an idea to change or to do away with some existing law, as Pastor Makya said, hey, I saw a law, I wanted to change, I didn't like the way it was, I wanted to change the existing law. So she took the step to make that change. Now, there are a bunch of different people that can bring forth the idea. You can have leaders in the community. You can have legislators bring forth these ideas. Our littlest of citizens, right, can bring forth, and then you can have other community links. By links, I mean there are organizations oftentimes that say we've got an idea or we see something that needs to be changed. Anybody, a bill doesn't start as a bill, it starts as somebody's thought process. Somebody wants to change something, someone wants to do something differently or want to introduce something new, right? The important part of this is knowing, like I said, I think the youngest, we had a bunch of high schoolers this year that brought forth a bill for us that was really amazing and changed some things on how we do food. So there's no one's entitled or not entitled to be a part of this process. Anyone can be a part of it. The important piece is knowing that who can introduce a bill. I'm sorry if my mother's dog is loud out there because I hear him. Do you hear a dog barking? Okay, just faintly. Okay, so all right. So who can introduce a bill? This is important. There are only 140 people in the state of, in the Commonwealth of Virginia that can bring forth a bill. And the person or that person, and you heard, I think Pastor Makya said it earlier, is it's called a patron or a sponsor. Right? This is basics terminology. So when you hear someone talking about a bill with that, and they say, well, who's the patron, who's the sponsor? That's the person who brings it forth. But remembering that the only members of the House of Delegates or the Senate can introduce the bill. Not even the governor can introduce a bill. The governor's got to find somebody to carry a bill for him or her, right? They've got to have somebody do it. And it can only be one of the folks that are part of the General Assembly. And so I don't take lightly. I just want to put the gravity to us of like what it takes to be one of the, we said it is 140 legislators. And I did the math because I'm a numbers person too. That is 0.002% of Virginians can actually bring forth a bill. I do not take that lightly. This is why we have a huge responsibility to the Commonwealth. And I say that to you all because it's really important that we be really wise and we be participatory, not just in the process of bringing forth changes with law, but in the process of making sure that the people that are there, the few that are there are representative of our values and of our beliefs. I put this link here for you all just to know, like, we don't do it by ourselves. Like when we get these ideas, when these ideas come forth, I don't know legalese. I'm just gonna raise my hand and say, I have no idea. I don't know law like that. The thing that we do is we've got some amazing people called DLS, the Division of Legislative Services, that will take that idea that you have, that organization have, that those people have, and they will straight take it and turn it into so that it makes sense for code. So don't assume, I never want anyone to assume that you've got to have this idea written out in a perfect way so that you can present it to us, present it to a legislator to carry. Absolutely not. I can literally type in a system and say, I want a bill that, and this is what we actually did too. We want to establish a bill that makes it so that police can use forfeited assets to do work in the community. Literally, that's all we wrote in the system. Didn't know the code section, didn't know anything, but I know I want a bill to do this. I want to change that, expand that definition. Those people, there's a process by which we submit it to those folks, right? And we work back and forth to get it right. So there is no perfect way of writing things up. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just got to come with what you got, and then we will walk you to the finish line, right? From there. Any questions thus far? Okay, good. Or not, go ahead.
No, you didn't have a question, but you did have a comment from Fried Chicken Christina. She said, thank you for explaining DLS. She thought all state delegates and senators had to be able to write that way and know all the legal language. So kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you. So many people are lawyers as their day job. So I was just like, everyone must know how to do this. And when I read it, I'm like, how did they know how to do this? This is amazing. Not to say that you're not amazing, but like, I'm glad to understand the behind the scenes process. It makes it less intimidating. So thank you for
Yes.
explaining.
So what I want to do for you, I just want to take a moment because I know we have time to do this. Because you made a point, right? Lots of people are lawyers in the General Assembly. There are a lot of lawyers there. But there are a lot of non-lawyers. There are more non-lawyers than there are lawyers. I'm gonna share my screen in a second. I'm just getting to a page because there is that piece of thinking. Fried chicken, Christina, I want you to even take that a step further to the types of people that run, right? People assume that you've got to have some law degree or some education, some specific kinds of education to be a legislator, and that's patently false. It's not true. But what I just did, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen only to share my screen again, because I want to give you a resource that I think will be helpful in sort of demystifying the kinds of people that are up there at the General Assembly. So I went to a site called VPAP, right? And in VPAP, what I did was I went to General Assembly, and then I went to legislators, and this is what came up. This particular screen, and you guys should be able to see the screen. I can take a look at the House by occupation, right? And I'm going to take a look and I'm going to see by occupation in the 2020 to special session. And we can go back. I don't know how far it lets you go back. Wow, it lets you go back to 2013. You'll see that there are only 17 lawyers out of the 100 of us that there are, right? 17 lawyers. Most of the people, and I'll just tell you, this is where the disparity comes in, own their own business. And I'll say why that, or business in business. That is because flexibility. What other jobs are going to allow you to take 40, 46 to 60 days off of work at the top of every single year just to go do this other job? Squid Lindley said 17 too many. I hear you, sis, I hear you. But really just giving you an understanding of, like, you can see there's a lot to be learned about who's up there. If that's something that you're interested in, there are 0 bankers. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but you can look based off of gender, race, age, margin of victory, education, military experience. And look, it says, like, look, attorneys, here we go. Right. So there are actually 25 attorneys and 75 non-attorneys. So I hope that's helpful, just in like giving you, yes, that's a quarter of the General Assembly, but they can't be everywhere all the time and do all the things. Okay. So I hope that was helpful to you, Fried Chicken, Christina, just giving you sort of the scope of the kinds of people that are there.
It was helpful
Yes,
to me.
thank you. Yeah.
All right. So getting back to it, like I said, and then I put DLS, the Division of Legislative Services, their Twitter here. And if you just want to stay abreast of like the things that are happening, laws and things like that, those are some good people to follow. Okay. Will you let me? Sorry, it's just hold up. All right. So once we do all of that back and forth with DLS, right, the bill is initially in draft. And right now we're in the process where, as legislators, we've been allowed to start submitting our bill since July 18th, right? July 18th was our go day where we could start submitting all kinds of bills just for draft, just to sort of get the language right, to work back and forth. Now, once the bill is drafted and good to go, the first thing that happens is it gets assigned a number, right? A bill isn't a thing until it's assigned a number. Now, oftentimes you'll see as legislators, we can draft as many as we need to, right? And when the time comes, like we're limited in this session because it's a short session, it's only 46 days as opposed to 60. We are only allowed to bring forth 15 bills. Whereas this past session, 2022, we could bring as many bills as we wanted to. So 15 bills, that means no matter what, we can draft 35 bills, but only 15 of them can get assigned a number to be possibly put on a docket. Does that make sense? So a bill ain't a bill until it got a number.
Was for that July that you can start submitting?
Well, we started that, and so these dates are determined right by the speaker and the clerk that working that out. But like the bills, we were able to start submitting bills back in July 18th. And I believe our last day to, submit our main bills for draft is like December 1st or something like that. However, every single session, we have the opportunity, no matter what, even if there's a bill limit, you still can't go over that bill limit. Like the first day that we could do up to 5 more bills, like, because it helps those people that draft our bills and do all that stuff. It gives them time to do it. We're each afforded 5 that we can do that first week, right? And I think they already, 5 drafts. And then by that Friday, they have to either be assigned a number or not. So say something happens before we get up there in session and it's like, oh, snap, this was a really great idea. I want to make sure I bring it forward. We still have that chance that first week. So I would always recommend, if you're working on an idea, start early, right? Summertime is the best time to start catching those legislators and start talking about what you need to talk about. Because like at this time where I'm at in the process, I'm pulling together all my stuff, right? Like I've already built out my legislative priorities and agenda, and I'm taking some other things on. But again, a bill isn't a bill. An idea doesn't become in the process of becoming a law until it's assigned that number. Now, once it's assigned that number, at the behest of the speaker, and I think people need to understand this, it's like whomever is in charge as the speaker, and this is in the House of Delegates, it will get assigned or referred to a committee. Right now, the Senate currently has 11 committees and the House of Delegates has 14 committees. But without that proper number, it goes nowhere. The speaker can decide not to docket a bill for a committee. Right. So you'll have people who have bills and they're like, hey, my bill has never been docketed, didn't get docketed. It's not even going to be heard in committee. So I think it's important to understand that process. I think this is my activity slide. Let me make sure. Okay, here we go. All right. So we're going to do a little thing, right? Is anybody on their phone?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I am.
Okay, that's okay. Well, then if you're not on your phone and you can open up another window, then okay, right? I want you all to, I'm gonna stop sharing because I'm gonna need to open up another screen. And I'm gonna get me a little tab here. We're gonna go to a place where, actually you might be able to do it. We're gonna go to lis.virginia.gov, lis.virginia.gov. And I'm gonna go ahead and LIS. Yeah, I keep it as a bookmarked tab in my life because I need it. Share screen, and then we're gonna get to it. Share the screen. This is probably one of the most important sites that you could possibly have on your list when you're trying to understand the bill process, what's going on, what does it mean, yada, 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 right? So it's important, like when you have an idea and you're like, I had this bill, my person brought it forth, they said that it was going to be in the session, and I'm going to change this to the, I'm going to go to bills and resolutions. Give me 1 second. And we're going to change the session. I want to change it to, where am I at? Session, sorry, did that wrong. We'll go to the regular 2022 session. You see, I had to go over here because here with other sessions, you can see all the different sessions there are all the way back to 1994. right? I use this sometimes to look and see if something that I want to bring forth has already been brought forth. Yep, thank you, Squid, Lindley, for putting in the chat. If you weren't able to get to it, she put it directly into the chat. LIS, this is Legislative Information System. You can find out all the things. So let's say you're like, I'm not bringing forth a bill idea, but I'm really interested in a particular topic, right? Let's say you want to look about because we said, right, when a bill gets a number, it's going to go to a committee. And you're like, I am super interested in education and the laws that are coming forth because I want to see what the heck's happening and how I can get involved and what bills are being brought forth. And maybe I want to be a good advocate. I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to the education, right? Now here, this will tell you all of let's find out all the bills that failed in this particular committee. Ooh, wowzers, right? All of this in the past legislative past session, all of these bills didn't make it out of committee. And I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about that in a bit. I just want you to keep this resource in the back of your head as you're thinking about what types of things you want to bring forth. So like when I go here and I say bills and resolutions, and I want to do a bill on food, I don't know if that's out there, if it's already happened. You can go in there and press a topic and then enter, come on. And then it'll tell me this is all the stuff that has to do with food, right? Some of it looks like, maybe I need to be more specific. So just understanding that there's a way for you to be able to see everything that's been brought forth and everything that maybe something that failed that you want to bring back. Maybe you got some more amplifying information, or you just want to see what a legislator is doing and what committee they on, because you got things that you want for them. This is an important sort of resource. Okay, I'm going to share, go back here. It's just an all-encompassing sort of resource, right? LIS, where you can see all the different committees. Does anybody remember how many committees does the House have?
14.
Look at you. I can't stand you. Po' boy, Lamont, shrimp po' boy. I'm just kidding. There you go. So then how many committees does the Senate have?
11.
11. Look at you. You get a sharpshooter. Wah, 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 wah. That's what I'm doing. I'm giving you all of that. Wah, 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 party time for you. Okay.
And I'm looking at my notes.
That's all right. That means you took good notes. That's the important part. All right. So LIS needs you to have that, just making sure that you know that what committees are what, right? You can go and see the committees, because after a bill gets assigned after a bill gets assigned a bill number, where does it go? Come on, everybody. Where does it go? Where's it going?
Committee, a subcommittee.
It's going to a subcommittee, only if, I'm going to say this again, only if the speaker allows it. Only if the speaker allows it. All right. So
can I ask you a quick question about that? Super quick.
Yes.
Sorry for the noise in the background. I'm cooking
No, you're
dinner. Does the speaker have to defend a decision not to send a bill to subcommittee?
not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Actually, it is a combination between the speakers and the chairs of the committee, right? Right. It's a combination of the two, because sometimes you'll have chairs that are just like, nope, not doing it, not docketing it. Your bill just won't see the light of day. And that sucks, right? That genuinely, I think I remember in the, when we first did this class, people were like, oh my God, they could just not. Yes, absolutely. But this is why I said there is a civic process to what we do, and there's an electoral process to what we do. The civic side is being engaged and advocating. The electoral process is getting your butt to go vote and getting everybody that you can to go vote, because both of those things go in hand. Our ability to see the civic process or the civic sides improve, right? Communities, the things that we believe in, to see that improve has everything to do with who's at the table and are they value aligned with us, no matter what that value is. The important piece about when it goes to the committee is like the subcommittee, excuse me. This is the first time that a bill gets to see the light of day, right? It's the first opportunity for anyone to be able to talk on the bill, for public comment. The subcommittees, and when it goes from committee to subcommittee, this is the time where we're supposed to be really sort of like studying and debating and having deep conversation about what this bill is. It's also sometimes the first time that the public can actually comment on these particular bill ideas. And so for you all, and like I said, I don't know if we'll take this a step further. This is the baby, because I look at my bills like my own babies, like they are my children. And when I present them, I want to make sure I present them well. This is our babies essentially opening their eyes for the first time. And somebody may actually look at my baby and say, your baby's ugly. And I have to stand there and take it. I have to be prepared. There's a lot of preparation that goes in to that first debate. Yes, fried chicken, Christina.
Yeah, so this was my first year. I was really closely following along the process of the bills for our delegation in Prince William County. And so I was on LIS a lot, especially in January, February, March, April. But I had a question. I saw a lot of bills die in committee, subcommittee, right? So that you can actually track and watch things happen or not happen. But with the ones that don't even get assigned a number, I'm curious. So a lot of bills that get assigned to a committee are fairly unpopular with the other side, right? Like a lot of the anti-voting legislation that the Republicans kept putting forward, that ended up dying in the Senate. But how did, and then vice versa, like, what is the thought process behind not letting it even get a number versus letting it get a number, letting everyone see it, and then just not letting it out of the committee?
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Did my question even make sense? I'm sure.
No, it did. Perfectly. Fried chicken always makes sense to me. Okay. So let me tell you what happens, right? Is it'll get a number, but sometimes it doesn't get heard in committee or subcommittee. There's no one can really control whether or not it gets a number other than that member if they decide to go ahead and process the bill to be drafted to get a bill number. So like I've got some bills that are drafted that I don't know that I want to have a bill number because I don't know that I want them. I don't know that I'm going to carry them, right? I'm saying, for instance, now once it gets that number, you may have a point where I'll tell you a perfect example. We thought we weren't going to hear the constitutional amendment bills because they waited until like the very end for our subcommittee to be able to hear them for privileges and elections. Mm-hmm. That's strategic. I think that's strategic. And then sometimes, so there's no I think Squid Lindley said is like there's no explanation and there's no we get to choose and we come forth with what we come forth with. But I would also say that there are very few things that you'll find that the members, particularly of the House, disagree on. Right? Because this past session, we passed over 800 bills, right? Like over 800 pieces of legislation. That's between the House and the Senate. Out of, I think it was like 1,600, or somewhere between 16 and maybe 16 and 1,400 bills, something like that. I can't remember the exact number. But a lot of those bills too are being voted on in what's called a block. And I think I'll talk about that. I think I'll talk about block voting. And so sometimes we're all collectively pressing that button and saying yes to 125 bills at a time. The contentious things are very few. They're like as far as bills and getting bills passed and things like that. So you'll see the controversy typically happens with, freedom, education right now, because that's heavily politicized. Election law, because that's heavily politicized. So there are these particular topics that you'll see a lot of discourse on, but we're passing sometimes hundreds of bills where we just all agree. Mm-hmm. There's no contention there, just for paradigm wise of understanding, there's some things you guys get to see, the things that are heavily polarized, we hear and talk about those things. But there's a lot that we do that it's not that. It's not that. Did that, I don't know if that answered your question or spoke to what you were asking. Did it, Christina?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just interested in the kind of the behind the scenes process of I just didn't know that some things don't, I guess that some things don't make the light of day, but what you were saying is that they don't make the light of day because the people who were going to, the legislators who were going to bring those things forward changed their minds.
So that could be a thing. That could be one, but sometimes they don't get docketed for the committee, for subcommittee, right? They'll have a bill number, but they don't get docketed. And to, I think the spirit of Squid Lindley's question was like, do they have to give a reason? No. Is that often that a bill just doesn't get docketed? This is my first session. I can't tell you if it happens often, but I know that it does happen. And then I personally had a bill that I brought forth that I felt like, you know what, after having all the conversations with the people that we needed to bring forth, the bill wasn't ready and I wasn't going to take it to subcommittee. I just said, can you pull that bill off of the docket? We're going to work on it some more and hopefully bring it back at another time. So there's two different reasons why you'll never see it in subcommittee. And also being mindful that on the Senate side, there's certain subcommittees that are not like televised because they are not set up that way. So they're not set up to be televised. So subcommittee is where, you know, where it's at, right? Before it even makes it to the subcommittee. So we have, like, I'll say I'm on privileges and elections. That's a committee, but I'm also on a subcommittee of that hears the constitutional laws and things like that. So if it doesn't make it out of my subcommittee, then it'll never be heard in the big committee, which is where a lot of people focus their attention on the big committee, the big privileges and elections committee. So these subcommittees that ends up happening, and on LIS, you'll see, like, if you go to a member's name and you click on committees, you can click and see what subcommittee, if they are on any subcommittee within the legislature. There's the trick there. It's like knowing that, like, you could be really hyped up about something, and if it don't make it out of subcommittee, there's never going to be a big vote on it. And if it never makes it out of committee, there's never going to be a floor vote on it. Lamont, shrimp po' boy, Lamont, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question about the committees.
Yes, sir.
Now, the committee chairs, the committee chairs are the party that's in power, right?
Correct.
So a committee chair can throw out a bill based on their politics.
They can, but that, like I said, I don't know that happens often. Mm-hmm. Typically, they have the votes for it to go either way, for it to go the way that they want to. The way the committees are typically set up is that the majority party has more people on each committee than the minority party. And so if they know they have the votes, they'll let it go through and kill it. And I'll talk about that in a second, the process of what happens of coming out of the committee.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so coming out of committee, there are 4 actions that can be taken, right? And I'm sure this was for my district. So if you see all these pictures of me, it's because those people in my district, they were really interested in what I was doing up there. So this is my first committee meeting, I think. There are 4 things that can happen. They can report that bill. Report it means that committee agrees that this could make a really good law, and they want to report it out to the House. So they go ahead and do that. It reports out. If it reports unanimously, meaning everybody in the committee says yes to it, then it'll go to the big House floor as a block vote, right? It'll be one of those ones where nobody on committee, no matter what their politics were, said no to this. So it goes into a big block vote and we all voted on it. And that can be 20 bills, that could be 100 bills. And sometimes people will vote, like we'll vote no on something so we can flag it because it's like, yeah, that doesn't seem nefarious, but we want to talk a little bit more about it, or we can pull it out of the block. The second thing that can happen when a bill comes out of a committee is that it can be amended. So the committee may say, hey, yeah, that bill is pretty good, but we want to make a change to it. That's making amendment to it before they vote on it, and then they'll vote whether or not it leaves the committee. The third thing they can do is they can refer the bill, right? Yep. they can refer the bill, which means, all right, we have this bill in front of us, but hey, I think it's going to cost some money. So we're going to go ahead and refer it to appropriations, or refer it to, it doesn't necessarily belong here. We think it needs to be seen somewhere else. They'll send it to another committee to be heard. And the last thing they can do is kill the bill. Like it's say dead on the water. We don't like it. The bill doesn't pass. It never sees a floor vote. Shrimp po' boy Lamont, go ahead.
No, I didn't have a question. You didn't erase the last one.
Oh, okay. I can't make you put your hand down. You got to do that yourself. Oh, yes, I can. Oops. You can unmute yourself. I apologize. I accidentally muted you. I'm going to lower your hand. Are you able to unmute yourself? I just want to make sure. Okay, there it is. All right, got it. So 4 actions: report, amend, refer, or kill that bill. I hate saying that out loud, but yes, it happens. And I've had some surprise killings too, right? Like after negotiating and thinking that the bill was going to go one way in committee, and it didn't go that way once I showed up, which is why I think communication is a huge thing. And sometimes when that happens, it doesn't mean that everybody's copacetic, if that makes any sense. All right. So once it makes it out, if it reports out, whether it reports out, oops, hold on. I went too far back. All right. If it reports out, right, that means that this bill is going to the floor, right? So the bill is introduced to the chamber, whatever that respective chamber is. That could be the Senate or that could be the House, in which it's introduced. And we have what is called readings, right? There's reading of the bill. So just like in school, we got to follow some rules. That's why I say like the speaker is kind of like the principal or the teacher in the classroom. We got to follow the rules. The first reading is when we just see the bill on our calendar, right? The bill is read by the clerk. The clerk just says it out loud, or it's printed on the calendar. Typically, because the first reading is a lot of bills, we'll just get this calendar and we can look at it online, or we can look at it as a paper, and we'll see all the bills that are on their first reading. That is just giving you, me, the rest of the public a heads up that, hey, it's going to be a vote in 48 hours on this bill, right? Because this is a 3-day process. The second reading is where the patron, no matter whether the bill is going to be in a block vote or whatever, it doesn't matter. The patron, and does anybody remember what the patron is? The patron of the sponsor? Who's that? It can't be you, Lamont. You already got I heard you do 2 questions already.
Is it the legislator who brings the bill forward?
Pow, yes. High five for you. Wah, 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 for you, right? Yes. So the patron has to stand up and say their bill. So this is House bill. The clerk will do his or her thing. House bill, blah, 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 patron, blah, blah, blah. That person stands up. They say, this is House Bill 1282. This bill does X, Y, and Z. Hope that, we report and pass it, right? That you, if it's the will of the body, I hope that this bill be passed. Or whatever you're saying to folks, just say, like, giving them a heads up. That is your second chance to say, all right, you read it, you heard it. and on that second time, this is where people can ask questions, or they can debate or try to amend the bill, right? Because you can stand up and speak to your bill and they can be like, yeah, about that. Let me ask you a question. Can I ask you a question about that bill? And you got to stand up and really be able, in front of the rest of your colleagues, whether it's the other 39 or the other 99, defend your bill. If there are any questions asked. Are there always questions asked? Nah, not often. On the controversial stuff, as Fried Chicken Christina sort of pointed out, is that there are things where it's hot. And so when the block is hot, it might be some back and forth, some real good, and I love it. It's like ping pong. It's some good back and forth, some good points, counterpoints on some of these bills. Now, the third reading is where we vote, right? That's where we get to vote. He pretty much comes up and we have to make a choice. Are we in favor or are we not? So that's a 3-day process. It's on the calendar. It has to be said out loud and debated if necessary. And then the third reading is where we actually vote on a bill. So now look at what your bill has done, right? Like it just started off as this idea, then went through the hell and high water of committee. It made it through subcommittee and committee and through stakeholders, because, we talking back and forth about these bills, and now it gets voted on. That's a big deal for a bill to see this light of day. And you think it was over, like you think, oh, now they said, yes, it's done, but no. This is why we have a healthy respect, because now, after we do all of the pieces of legislation, there's a date. There's a midway point of our General Assembly session. That date is usually told to us. It's called crossover. It's that point in time in which we've got to have all of our stuff voted on. It's got to go through all that process before. And then it crosses over to the other chamber, right? So all the legislation from the House goes to the Senate, all the legislation from the Senate comes to the House, and it goes back through that whole process again. It's got to go to committee. It's got to do its first, second, and third reading 9 times out of 10, because it's a gerontocracy over there in the Senate that you got to go through some high water just to get some folks to understand. And that's just what it is, right? So your bill, this idea has got 2 goes at it. So crossover is an important part. When you hear people, we got to get this stuff done before crossover, or we'll see at crossover. That's because all of that advocating, it's like, so the behind the scenes for me, right? When I've got a bill, what's happening at crossover is here I am making a list of all the senators that I need to go talk to now. I should, if I've done my job well, I've probably already introduced it to them at least once already, because, I'm just like preemptively like, yeah, it's going to pass. Like, that's the cockiness, is like, yeah, we're going to get this done. But if it doesn't make it, it doesn't make it. But if it does, guess what? I've already made that touch point about my thing, right? So I'm just coming back to you again, because I knew you was going to be here. So my stuff is coming to your committee. Let's go ahead and talk about it. I'll talk to your LA, do what I have to do, right? And we talk a little bit about that when we, in the other course, when we talk about lobbying, that talking to people's legislative assistants or chief of staff is sometimes just as good as talking to them, because life, when we're in session, is boom, 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 boom. It's all the things happening. All right. So if it passes the House, we go to the Senate, we said, and so to make sure that the laws are democratically are created democratically, the House and Senate share that responsibility of making laws, which is why, little old me, and I'm the most junior person in the General Assembly until this other person gets elected before we start session again, is like, I take, I can't think of the word, but I don't take it personally, but I don't take it lightly when people say that we are the lower chamber, we're less than because we're not the Senate. We have equal powers, equal skin in this, well, I ain't gonna say skin in this game, but we've got equal powers. Just as they got ability to kill our stuff, we got the ability to kill their stuff. That's just how it goes. I'll say fried chicken, Christina, what you got?
So I had a question that it's about something that I noticed, especially highlighted on Twitter this last legislative session, where there would be a senator in the, state senator, and there would be a delegate in the House of Delegates, and they would have what I kind of in my mind was calling like sister bills, where it was essentially the same legislation. And, it would either die in one house, and then that would just be it, like maybe, for example, in the House. But then the Senate, it would pass, and then it would be sent over on crossover day to the House, or vice versa. Or sometimes they'd both be killed, or whatever. Can you explain, I guess, the thought process behind introducing the same piece of legislation in both legislative bodies, I guess? And then is there a strategy to that?
Yes.
And if so, what is that strategy? Because it's very interesting to me.
Okay, so here's what happens is you want to give your, if there's an idea that we can both agree on, we want to give it the best chance of surviving, right? And with a split House and a split between, a Democratic House and a Republican, I'm speaking into fruition. With the Republican House and a Democratic Senate, what happens is it's like you don't necessarily know what's going to happen to your particular bill on your side of the wall, of the hallway. I'll just say of the hallway. So the strategy is like you've clearly got 2 cracks at it, right? Because you could just have a day where people are being petty and then your stuff gets killed, but it's still got a chance in the Senate when it comes over. Because I don't, sometimes we agree on things, but moods are real, right? And
so it's more about sometimes like the people behind government and their personalities behind that sometimes.
It's a number of things. It can be a problem patron, right? But typically when they're strategizing of who's going to carry what, because there are conversations about this person's going to carry this person's going to carry this because they've got the best that be getting that approved, right? Like that's a real thing. But you'll see we've had bills that it had a cognate, that's what we call it. It's a House bill with the Senate cognate or a Senate bill with the House cognate. They're, like you said, sister bills where it has died in the House and then it survived in the Senate. And when it came over to the Senate, when it came over to the House, it managed to make it through with some changes. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But the logic is you are giving that bill the best chance, that idea, the best chance to make it through.
It's called a cognate?
A cognate, yep.
Thank
a cognate is like a sister, like you said, a sister bill. So then here's the deal, right? Try Chicken Christina, Catfish Sandwich, Eric, Squid Lindley, Po' Boy Shrimp Lamont, and Pasta Makya, is that sometimes when things come back over from crossover, it gets a little weird, right? Because the Senate may have saw the bill that we had, and I'm gonna just say, for example, I had a bill that when the Senate saw it, they were like, wait a minute, the House changed this bill? We don't like it. We don't like the way they change it. Go put it back the way you want to. Do you consider that okay? Because the House, when they made the amendment, right? Because I said there are 4 actions that can happen in committee. Does anybody remember those 4 actions? Can you tell me what those 4 actions were in committee? Come on. We just
report it, amend it, kill it, and something.
Come on. Go ahead. Refer, right? And so what they did, when they made the amendment, they said, hey, this is a friendly amendment. Do you consider this a friendly amendment at the House? And I was like, no, initially I was like, no, I don't. They were like, well, if you don't, then your bill dies. And I was like, oh, no, okay, I'll take the amendment, right? Because it was just words, because the folks in charge they didn't want the word revitalization. They didn't like that. They didn't like community investment and revitalization. Those words made their skin crawl. So they wanted to hear goodwill. And I was like, I don't want goodwill, but it still allowed me to do the same thing, the bill to do exactly what it needed to do. But when the Senate got it, they said, wait, revitalization and community investment, that's very specific. That actually helps. That helps and provides clarity to what that means. Would you mind if we want to change it back? And I was like, well, I absolutely agree with you. However, once the Senate has done their part, the bill's got to come back to us. It's got to come back to the House with the amendment. And we've got to say yes to the amendments that they've made. If there are changes, if they say yes, if we've already said yes, they say yes, good to go. We're going to go to the next step. And I'm going to talk about that next step. But if they make changes and we don't agree on those changes, right? If they make the changes. So like with my bill, the Senate was like, nah, we're gonna make a change. We're gonna put it back the way it was. Remember, I'm in a Republican controlled House, and the Republicans said, hey, we don't want those words. And so the guy who runs the committee was like, I'm gonna tell you something. If it looks like that, we're just gonna kill it on the floor. He told me that out front, right? So I knew when we do this thing, our bills go into this thing called committee. And I'm gonna say this again, into conference. So I want you guys to hear this word, conference. Conference, a bill goes into conference when the House and the Senate have differences on what that piece of legislation should look like, right? Conference. And so conference sounds like we're sitting at a table and we're actually talking about it, and no. Conference reports are assigned by the speaker. And like for my particular bill, it was myself. It's 1 Democrat, 2 Republicans. I think I had the option of, yeah, 1 Democrat, 2 Republicans. I had to have two signatures or something like that. I can't, it's failing me at this point. But I had to have them sign and say, all right, then here's the compromise we're going to come to. So I had to go to the Senate, and I had a couple people, like there are 4 people on the conference report, but you only need 3 signatures, if that makes any sense. So the patron plus whoever, and then whoever's on the other side. So I had to go to the other side to the senator and be like, hey, the senators that were assigned to that conference, because the Senate is going to assign their own people to their conference. And I think Senator McClellan was one of the people on there. And I was like, hey, yeah, we're going to go ahead and go with the House versions of it because I don't want the bill killed. They're like, are you sure you're okay with this? I'm like, I'm sure I'm okay with this. She signs off. Then I go to Senator Morrissey. Okay, hey, the House doesn't agree. I just wanted to, all right, you sign off. Then Senator Stanley. Okay, all right, you agree, right? Typically, you're going to have more of the party in power signatures than the party that is not. So I had on the Senate, I had to get two Democratic senators, 1 Republican. In the House, I had to have 2 Republicans sign off and 1 Democrat. And I could personally be that Democrat, right? Because I'm on that committee. It's my bill too. So that's how that happens in conference. And if we can't work it out in conference, the bill dies, right? And that's just a piece of paper so that we know we're on the same point. We vote. We actually have another vote on the conference report too, right? So, and you can have a bill that gets sent to conference but never gets talked about. So like it's really up to you to hustle and get your bill together in that conference report stage. Because I think I had folks that say, it's not going to go anywhere. Like we're going to have to rework this. You may come to the realization that there's something different I got to do to get this where it needs to be. But the conference reports, that's a real situation when the houses don't agree. But in order, so let me pause for a second. Any questions about conferencing? Conferencing after crossover. This is a lot of stuff. Okay, cool, right? So let's say your idea, okay, go ahead, Squid Lindley.
Sorry, I'm still cooking. I couldn't wipe my hands off and hit the button. Is there guidance from leadership in the House as you're, going into conference to support you in, strategic approaches to specific personalities that you might encounter in that place, just to give you an advantage or just, offer that support, especially for someone like you who's new to the behind the scenes elbow throwing that happens? Is there like that type of support in any formal way, or does that normally look like an informal approach where I would my cynical assumption would be that kind of support would be reserved for, more establishment folks who are kind of in those circles already. And that might mean that there's not like an equitable distribution of that support for everyone.
Yeah. So what happens, at least I'm going to say what I'm going to say, but I'm also going to say the grace I give, right? Is that when we're up there, right? When we're up there in session, to me, as a former service member, it's like being deployed. Like everybody's in the hustle bustle of doing their mission and their job. And it's like, I don't know that I can babysit. And I'm putting it that way, right? Because I'm granting people grace who have been in the thick of things. There are few members who will, just, hey, if you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. But there's no real like proactivity of saying, I'm going to help you do this. We do have like a mentor program, which I think needs to be more of a sponsor program, rather more so than a mentor program, because I don't think people have the bandwidth to mentor people in that way. You can make sure someone knows where the bathrooms are, where to find certain things and all these different things, but there's no real like mentorships happening. So to answer your questions, I don't think that there's any formal process that says, hey, to like a new person like me, hey, Jack, you're going to the conference, you got to deal with Rob Bell, and you should approach him this way. Did I ask? Yup. What I did is like, I'm personally very, 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 very fortunate to have a solid team. right? And like what they did for me before I even went to go like politic my bills, like they gave me backstory on people. And these are people who know nothing about, like, I had to make a choice. I got elected the day before session started. I could take people who are familiar with Richmond or people who could learn Richmond that I trust. And I chose the people that I trust that could learn Richmond. And before I go to talk to Rob Bell, they're like, hey, yo, he's straight up. You just need to be straightforward. You just need to, like, here's what we learned about him. And so we kind of did our own opposition research about people and how to, and then I feel like if I had a gift, if I was given something, it's like interpersonal communication with people, like just like being small too helps. And but being like, I know I have a big personality, but I'm small. It's been really helpful in building relationships and being in the military. Like, I don't care that you're a Republican. We're going to have, like, we can have this conversation. And if you choose not to, then that is okay too. Feelings not hurt. But at some point we're going to have to interact. So like, I think what was really fortunate for me is like being able to be in rooms most of my career with BDE. And I don't know any more way to say it, big dick energy, right? The guys that come in, like understanding how to manage BDE and what that looks like, and then being able to like communicate what it is that I needed and that I wanted was very helpful for men in the party. And I'm saying this, and I know that I don't want to, for Eric, for Catfish Sandwich Eric, and for Shrimp Po' Boy Lamont, I'm not saying that to disparage the men, but there is a lot of that up there of, we've been in this chamber longer, right? And so we established more relationships. We kind of know how let the dudes handle it. Like there's that there, or you can kind of figure it out. And that's unfortunate because that doesn't have a political party on that. That's both sides. But, you know, I'm mindful of how I manage my BDE, right? Like, I know I have to, there's certain men that needs a whole lot of me, like, you know, bossing up to them. Unfortunately, like, that's just what they understand. And there are some who need to hear the sound of their name, right? I just say, hey, Eric, okay, you know what I mean? Like, I picked a random name. I don't hope nobody's name is Eric. I don't know that anybody's name is Eric, but yeah, no, there's no formal process. I said a lot to say a little. Sorry, Squid Lindley.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I don't want to get off track for what you want to accomplish tonight, but I just looking for ways to make sure that those of us who are engaged, like, take that additional step of asking the folks that we know in the GA to do better, especially by new folks, and especially just recognizing that I've seen a lot of, you know, just sorry to curse on Makya's thing, but just like a lot of white supremacist fuckery that happens within the party itself, and just exclusion of, and it seems idiotic because then we ultimately don't reach our goals. But I think there's some leverage that can be applied by those of us who interact with these folks to just say, hey, like, when was the last time you reached out to Jackie, to Nadarius, to, you know, hopefully Delegate Makya Little, you know, when did you reach out to these folks and have a conversation to give them that support? So maybe that's something that those of us working around in the space can advocate for.
Yeah, and I can say that that organizationally, it has been other people's staff that have that helped me survive the pages, and the kindest of the lobbyists, right? Of being like, hey, you know, like that has been a huge, for me, that was a huge support system of people being like, hey, you know, such and such and this, and I'm like, oh, didn't even know, thank you, check that, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. It has been the supporting actors that were very helpful, but that's not to say that there aren't people within the system that are helpful. It just there isn't a lot of proactivity with that, right? It's, hey, you can come to me, and I think that's, like I said, giving grace. I wanted to start with grace, is that we're all in the motions. We're all in the motions at that point in time. So it's during these off times where we're still trying to live our lives where there's an even greater opportunity. But I appreciate that. Thank you, Squid Lindley, for that sentiment. So as she said, we were talking about being able to talk with personalities about like conference reports and things like that, like making sure you're not rubbing anybody the wrong way so your stuff get killed. But let's say it makes it through the conference committee process, it makes it through maybe it didn't go to conference and it made it through that process, or it did go to conference and it made it through. Then, we got to take it to the governor, right? Then it goes to the governor's action. And we are in an interesting time with the executive branch, because you just don't know when a bill is safe. Because the governor has the opportunity to do several things as well. So a bill has to pass with the same wording, like we said before, same wording in the House and in the Senate before it can go to the governor. So we've already done our parts, and the governor has 4 choices. The governor can choose to sign the bill, and if he or she signs that bill, it becomes a law. Boom, bow, got it. So remember, again, even when the governor decides to sign it, that it's been a long road for that bill to get there. So a deep appreciation for whatever it is, right? The governor could change the bill or amend, right? This sounds like committee, right? Sound a lot like what a committee does for one person, right? So the governor can return the bill back to us with some changes or amendments. And if the House and the Senate approves those changes, then the bill becomes a law. Because we have to go back through that process. If we don't approve it, then it doesn't become law. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do that for my notes. The governor can veto a bill, right? The governor vetoes or says, like, I do not approve, right? The House, now tell you, the House and the Senate can overrule a veto, but you need 2/3 vote from both chambers to overrule a veto. So the governor can be like, nah, B, I don't want it. But the House and the Senate can be like, yes, we do. But you've got to get 2/3 vote on both sides and from both chambers in order for it to, in order to override the veto. And then the last thing that could happen is that the governor could take no action. If he or she decides that she doesn't want to sign a bill, doesn't want to do anything with it, it still becomes a law. Nothing happens. That rarely happens, but the fact is some, governors have done this. So just not doing anything, I'm not signing, not doing nothing with it. It still becomes a law. That makes sense? All right. So what you're looking for is, after all that process, actually, I'm gonna backtrack before I go to this next piece, is the important piece to know is that we are in a situation where we had bills that made it like all the way through the first, like the governor did nothing and we were still in session. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, the governor was like, nah, I'm killing it. So we're in, just for the next couple of years, we're in a very uncertain time with bills like your bill. The bill is not safe until we are done, until we're done with session. And that's after reconvene, right? Reconvene, being able to, because what it is I think the governor has 3 weeks. Man, I have to look at the code. I used to know this offhand, and I don't have my notes for this because I was like, yeah, girl, go ahead. You can do it without your notes. But the governor gets a certain amount of days to go ahead and take action, right? To sign, amend, veto, or do nothing. And then we'll come back, right? That's what the House and the Senate has to come back. That's what we call reconvene. We reconvene and we make a decision on how we feel about the governor's amendments or whatever was brought back. And until that day, until we're done sine die, the sine die is the last day of session, is where we end that session, we close it out. Those bills are not safe. This year we did sine die, but then we came back for a special session. So we've been in special session all the way up until the beginning of last month. So yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, fried chicken, Christina.
Yeah, that I had a question about the special session, because there were a couple of bills, especially from State Senator Jennifer McClellan, that I was following pretty closely, that had to do with education, that seemed really, really great. And there was also one of her bills was about it was something like firearm violence. Like there was like a research or a center for studying that, or I don't know. It sounded really, really good. And I was like, I want it to pass. And then So it didn't end up doing anything. And then it said something again, sorry, my memory's all noodly doodly at this point. Because it was so long ago. I guess it went into special session, and then that's what you guys have been working on, is like getting the rest of all of the bills that hadn't been decided.
Yeah, in
That
conference.
gets done now okay.
The most
So
of the
is
bills
that all
we're-
done now?
Yes and no. So
Oh boy.
here's the sticky situation we are. So the bills that were still in conference, right? If the bills that were still in conference we still had business, which was why people were like, yo, we've never really had to go into special session with this much work still left over. And granting grace, right? Because the house looked very different. And I know that what it appeared to me, right? Just recognizing leadership wise is that with the Republican Party taking leadership of the House, there were some growing pains of like knowing, okay, like here's how we're going to do this, here's how we're going to do that. Like, of course, they have institutional knowledge, but things were running not as smooth, right? We were hitting a lot of potholes with getting stuff done, and you could hear the grumblings from both sides of just like, this is how we're supposed to do things and things like that. So there was a lot of legislation that went into special session. When we, I want to say it was September 7th when we went back, there was a disagreement as to whether we would end our special session or whether we would continue and at some point finish the legislation. I don't know what the outcome is or what the next steps are, but the House ended the session sine die, right? The House said, yo, we ain't got no more business. We were supposed to vote on an SCC judge. That didn't happen. So like we voted well, the majority members voted to end the session sine die. The Senate voted to recess. So you had the two chambers in different statuses. And when I read by the Constitution is that we are not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be rectified within 3 days, but there was really no consequence within the Constitution to say what happens next. So like, it's kind of like in limbo of like, the Senate is on recess because they feel like we have more business to do. And the House is like, we're done until next session.
Okay, then that is what I understood it to be. It just felt like it's all just kind of suspended in the air and no one knows what, like, and I'm trying to figure it out because like, I don't know a ton. I'm still learning. And I'm like, what am I not understanding here? Like, aren't there bills that need to be yesed or noed? Like what's happening? So does that mean that the things that didn't get passed or not passed, does that go on to the next session and you start over, or does that work that you've already done stay with that legislation?
Yes, it does. So
it does. Okay.
Yep, it stays with that. Nothing's going to carry over to then. This is a brand new session. So if anything didn't get done, you have to resubmit it, right? Goes back into draft, goes back into all that good stuff. So you start back over.
So just restart. Okay.
Yeah. Because it's a new session. That's not a special session. It's not extending anything. So it's if there was a bill that didn't get passed or didn't get done within conference or didn't come out of conference, then if that legislator wants to bring that bill back forth, then they've got to go through that process of getting the bill drafted, getting a bill number, and going back through the conference, the committee, subcommittee, committee, House, all that good stuff again.
Okay.
Yep. And again, I will always, sort of underscore is this is my first session too. So many of the things I'm still like wrapping my hands around, and I did not do party politics before this election. I specifically stayed in spaces where I didn't have to worry about being a D or an R. And I like you, I'm holding some of these things in my hand too, and trying to make sense of it while trying to get things done. It's real. This has just been I think it's been a very I think it's been a really good time to see a little bit of chaos, right? Like, because now if things get easier, then it gets easier. If it gets harder, then okay too. Like, I know how to manage this chaos, at least I feel like. But again, I'm on deployment. So.
That's a healthy perspective, because I was very frustrated when I was trying to learn all this. I'm like, what is happening? Okay.
Yep, you're okay. No one died. We're good. We're all good. And we've learned something, right? We've learned what we need to do so that these things can go a little bit differently. All right, lastly, yo, here it is. This is it. July 1st. Bada bing, bada bang. Bills become laws. That's it. Like bills become laws during bills that became laws during the regular session, which is most times it's 30 days in odd years. Next year, it's going to be 46 days and 60 days in even years. They take effect on July 1st. Boom, look at that. July 1st, that's the big day. And you can see a list of all the different laws that came into be. There's a lot. 800 laws is a lot. That's a lot. All right. So your go-dos, right? Because you're preparing. You should be preparing for next session. At least I hope you are. Hopefully after this, you got a deep appreciation for how something becomes a law. It has a long life to live, right? This is what I had folks doing to prepare for our next class. I don't know that we have a next class, but I think as we walk into this next adventure with legislation, you need to start thinking about like, what's your thing, right? You came here for a reason. What's your thing? What's that idea that you want to sort of impact or influence change? It could not be at the state level. It could be right in your own backyard. But what's that thing? And you recognizing now, hopefully you feel like, yeah, I've got the power to propose legislation. I don't got to be a kid genius. All it takes is a little bit of idea. And then you have really amazing organizations. I really want to promote this, guys, to you, is that you've got really great organizations that may have values aligned with you to help you bring whatever that idea is forward, so that if you don't necessarily have the confidence to show up to a legislator, you can say, hey guys, hey, I'm just going to say Center for American Progress. I know you guys do a lot of work on childcare. I want to bring something forth. I've got this idea. Do you guys have any research, any background? Can you help me? These organizations live for this sort of stuff, right? And then they can be great partners with helping you present. So you don't got to do it all yourself, but maybe you're a renegade and you got this. So go ahead and look up your legislator, or it could be your local legislator, your state or federal, and get that meeting on the books, right? Nope, we're not doing that. I was going to have you guys do this because we're down to our last little bit. We pick your issues, right? I've already said that. Lastly, I wanted to do this because I know we forget this, and this is for Makya more so than for me, is that you got to get your group picture, sis. Right? You did it. She put this on. Y'all got to at least come off camera and let her get a group picture, okay? For prosperity.
Well, let me close the chat. So all of
I'm coming.
aren't seen, but Jackie, that was in the team spirit of cursing. That was fucking amazing. So now we've all done it. Wow. I'm so grateful for your time, your energy, all of the food that I want to eat right now. Christina, all of your questions were amazingly engaging. Lindley, thank you for your support on all fronts. And Eric, I know you are and I just want to Eric Riley a shout out. He actually a game designer with a program in the new 19th district called Future Kings. And there is a group of young Black and Hispanic males interested in STEM who are considering turning your course into an animated short similar to a modern day Schoolhouse Rock.
That'd be dope.
So thank you for representing Future Kings on this call. Lamont, thank you for joining us to get a double dose of Jackie Glass this week. And I am going to take this photo in 5, 4, 3, 2. All right. Danica taught me that. I'm sorry. But thank you again, Jackie. Any closing words, inspiration, go get them.
No, I would say, I just want to make sure I didn't ask before I yep, we done, because I'm really respectful of people's time. Like, I know it's 7:30, we said it's 7:30. Any questions, any comments, any concerns? Like, you are more than welcome. Like, we get people that don't live in our district to reach out all the time, and we always do our best to connect them to their person. But go, come on, fried chicken.
I have another engaging question. Question.
Yes, ma'am.
What is, if you have like a big thing, like I want paid parental leave. I want paid parental leave. My kids are 9 and 6, and I'm not having any more, but a lot of my friends are having kids, and a lot of my friends have had kids, and people have saved sick leave, have timed their pregnancies for the summer if they're teachers. It's crazy. So I want it. My question is, that's a big bad, right? That's not a little specific thing. That's a big thing. So when you're tackling a big thing, how do you go about it? Do you start picking up the easiest next steps to getting to the goal, or do you go for it? And then if you're going for something big, do you go to your state senator, or do you go to your delegate, or do you just ask everybody and like build a coalition? Because like that's something that doesn't just benefit my area of Prince William County, that benefits Virginia, that benefits all Virginians. So done.
Done. I saw Makya was
So yeah, I actually am going to bequeath to you the wisdom that one of the late Congressman Elijah Cummings staffers gave me, and then I'm going to let Jackie put her Virginia spin on it. And his name was Harry Spikes, wonderful gentleman, had basically studied under Elijah Cummings as his regional director or district director. And I asked him that same thing, like, how do I don't do this political thing. Like, where do I start? And he said, I'm going to give you 2 answers. He said, I'm going to give you the high school answer, and then I'm going to give you the Howard University PhD answer. He said, the high school answer is when you meet with people, legislators, go in with your ask, everything written down. He said, on one sheet of paper, put the title, the subject of whatever it is that you're talking about, your name, your contact information, the date. Use the top half of the sheet to kind of bullet out your talking points. Then the lower half, notes, and then leave that blank on the bottom so they can take notes right where all of your information is. Sorry, call tried to come through. He said on the back, put your ask, put exactly what you want them to do. He said that's the high school answer. You got that? Then he said, now the Howard University PhD answer is to build alliances. So whoever has a stake interest in whatever it is that you're advocating for, meet with them, meet with parents, meet with teachers, meet with the other moms in your neighborhood, or build coalitions. That way, whenever you do go talk to these legislators, you're not just speaking for you. So I would say the same to that. Organizations that already have that as their mission area, like my HB 1351 that I thought would only affect survivors of domestic violence. There are parent groups who deal with divorce issues and making sure they have time. Those divorce laws impact them as well. So I will turn it over to Jackie to round that out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, there are orgs to get with, but and it's a yes and, right? Like, finding the folks that are already working on this, like Family Friendly Virginia, like there's a laundry list. And if you want to connect the dots, and we can give you a list of people that are already like working on it. But then it's also asking these legislators the hard question, is that this year we came into a Republican controlled House, right? So that meant for the past 4 years, we didn't have that, and we still don't have paid family leave. Right. And so, like, as we know that the power had, like, that's the question I asked. It's like, we've had power, right? I know I've seen the gains. I'm not knocking the gains, but ask why. Like,
No,
why
that
couldn't-
is actually what I was thinking about. We had a Democratic trifecta.
why?
Where's our paid parental leave? Like, I'm yelling at the wrong person, but I'm yelling into the air in my bedroom. You know what I mean? Like,
No, it's
we had it. So what's
Ask
happening?
why. I mean, genuinely, like, no,
Yeah.
I don't know any other way. Again, I understand that will be uncomfortable for some people, but the thing about it is it's not about your comfort in this situation, because we know that if we're going to improve the quality of life, if we're going to stop, it is not, what do we call it? It is not economically or socially sound to disenfranchise families in that way. It's not. Like, what we've seen, and the military just did not recently. Let me go back a little bit. Back in 2008 or 9, I was a part of this women's policy office that the Navy built, right? Like, they were like, yes, we're going to do a women's policy office. We're going to come up with all the good things that are going to help women stay in the United States Navy. Out of this office came paternity leave, right? And then there was a program called the Career Intermission Program, right? So the Career Intermission Program said, hey, if you are a sailor, what you can do is you can say, I want to take up to a year off. I think it was up to a year. And for each year you pay, each time you pay back whatever, double that time or whatever it is. I want to take up to this amount of time off. Just take a break. I just don't want to be on an active duty, but I want to come back. And when that program rolled out, take a guess at who took advantage of it. Yo, the dudes did. One guy took time off of the military to climb Mount Everest. Another guy did it because he wanted to write a book. And so, like, what we know is, like, these policies, especially when it comes to, like, you're essentially helping families. So, like, it's also asking the people that we typically value align with, that means Democrats too, why? Tell me why this stuff isn't making it through, because, like, we want to take that next step. What conversations happen that we need to become better advocates to ensure that on your side, right? We had the trifecta that we make these things happen. Without asking that, it allows the people to stay in the same mindset that, like, some problems are good problems because we've always got something to fight for. While you're sitting up here saying, like, yo, I only get this amount of time off. Like, I don't get time off for, you know what I'm saying? I've got a parent right now whose daughter died, and at the very hospital that she works at, right? Her daughter, and there's no leave. She does not get leave. She does not. She's waiting for a doctor to give her approval to get some time off for, like, mental health, because there's no, like, that's crazy. Like, none of that makes sense. And we do have to kind of fight with that vigor. And it's not just one party, it's both. So, like, we got to stop giving our people passes. And that I don't know any other way to say that. It's like, yeah, I support you, but this is some bull, chickadee. Like, I don't know what else to say. But I'll say this too. We are now approaching, I'm debating where I'm going to put this in. I haven't decided whether I want to put it in for a bill or not, or if I just want to do it outside of the legislator. But what I want to build is a care economy business council, where we pull in business leaders who understand that this is good for business, right? I've got a guy who owns a gym who's like, I have a woman, she's phenomenal, she works for me, she's ready to have another kid, she's already got a kid. I can't keep her on. Like, I want to know how to help as a business leader, because I also want to I have to think business, but I also want to keep good people. He's like, so is there any way that, the state can help? And I'm like, we need a care economy business council where the business leaders can work with us that are not chambers. Let me just be honest, like, chambers tend to operate not in ways that I don't necessarily believe overlap with values. Like, there's some good stuff, but, like, how do we get those people in the room to talk about how we make this happen and help the business side of people help push for paid family leave, right? For childcare subsidies and incentivizing unorthodox childcare, like getting different players. And I think that is like the thing now, like is how do we get those stakeholders? Because people tend to listen to businesses more than they listen to people. At least I'm finding out they make moves for businesses other than people. So like that's what I've been working on. I'm building that coalition to start a care economy business council to be able to make some really good recommendations to the legislator on how to do this care economy thing better. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. You got to make sense monetarily. It can't just be the right thing to do, which is sad.
Yeah,
but true. That's true. Thank you for answering my question. Both you and Makya. Thank you.
No worries.
All right. If all hearts and minds are clear, I'm going to let you close this out, Jackie.
Okay, I'm just going to say this. Don't expect what you won't inspect, right? If you're going to bring something forth and you expect it, don't be afraid to go back and follow up to make sure it happens, because people are counting on you to just say, yeah, I want that, and then walk away because they said they would get it. So that's my thing. I trust but verify. That's all.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and have a wonderful evening. We'll make sure that the recording is accessible for you all.
Good night. Thanks, Lamont, for
Thanks,
coming.
y'all.
We appreciate you, Shrimp Po' Boy.
Yeah, good night. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you, Catfish.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.